We both studied healthcare administration here in the School of Business under Professor Vallone, Professor Valdez, Professor Robbins. And so I stayed here in the Valley and started working for the behavioral health group. And Nick, you were actually reached out to by a healthcare organization pretty soon after graduation, huh?
Yep. So graduated in like December of 2010 and then had an interview January 2011. With Cerner Corporation. It's a healthcare IT company in Kansas City, and did pretty well in the interview and got the job and moved to Kansas City right out of school.
So can you tell us what was that interview like, and what was it like getting started into what appears to be a pretty intense position right out of the gate? So
the interview, I would just honestly say a lot of my classes had set me up to do well in that interview. You know, a lot of the professors, Vallone, Mondo, you know, they have their ear to the ground on what's going on in healthcare. So being able to answer those questions of why are EMRs important, what are they, you know, those sort of things. Answering questions in a way, you know, that doesn't make you come out on top, looking like the best. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it was a pretty intensive interview process. I think there was like 4 interviews.
And what was the first position that you held, and where was it at?
So I was an analyst in Kansas City, and basically I was working on a solution called CareNet, which is basically acute care EMR. So it's all the documentation that occurs when patients, what we call on the floor, you know, long term, basically more than 2 days, and working mainly with nurses.
Okay. So before you got into the first healthcare setting where you're actually working to implement product, what was your training process leading up to that very first job that you took, or was it all OJT? What was it like?
Yes, so like right after I got hired, there's what they call simulation, which I think it was 3 months at the time, and you're simulating the entire build of an EMR. So is what the build is essentially is the engineers, the coders, they basically create programs for the analysts to be able to customize the system, so that, you know, the analyst is basically the middleman between the engineer and the nurse.
Gotcha.
You take what the nurse needs and you communicate that to the engineer, and hopefully find solutions for that. And so that simulation was 3 months, and you're building out a fake hospital. It's like a boot camp, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What? How was that? I mean, did you expect yourself working in a line that worked that way when you started studying healthcare administration? What prompted you to study that track, and what did you see yourself doing originally?
I really saw myself at maybe management in a hospital, some kind of healthcare administrator. Kind of, you know, the opportunity came and just kind of took advantage of it, and then turned out to be something I was pretty good at and I really liked doing. So,
so you get to be the middleman. Communication's got to be huge in that particular role, right? To be able to understand what's going on, to understand what's even possible. Because I know for me, a lot of times I think we think, oh, we'll just make the magic box talk this way, right? Just make this do this. Why can't it do this? And people get like really frustrated on the user end, right? And you have to like bridge that gap to find solutions that are actually possible, you know, and get the needs met of the individual. How has teamwork played a role in your success in this field?
You definitely have to work on a team. I mean, there's going to be things that you're good at and things that you're terrible at. So being able to know yourself and know what you're not very good at, and then finding somebody on your team that's really good at that thing, you know, that's really how you find a good, you know, a good mesh.
Good synergy.
And with as far as communication, you know, you have to definitely, once you get into the, you know, the real world, just acting professional, you know, and being optimistic and positive. It's a lot of your attitude.
Yeah.